Hey, what's up, guys? It's Demorrious with the I Am Demorrious podcast. Super excited, man, to drop this new episode today. I was always praying and just kind of meditating and saying, all right, what's the word for today, right? Um, and just some things that was transpiring, just kind of where I'm moving and some things right now. One of the things that kind of jumped out to me was the word wait. I was sitting here all day just meditating on it. So I wanted to just drop this joint. So if you're new to I Am the Morris podcast, our goal, our desire is to encourage, enlighten, and empower you with the use of practical words and ideas. Listen, we are super excited, man, because I just believe that I'm in a different season where some great things are about to manifest. One of the things I believe now more than ever is that the things that you want to see, you have to start framing those things. You have to start speaking those things so that you can set the framework of what it is that you desire to manifest, to have the work and have the material and the substance that it might show up in your life. Not might in a way that possibilities or whatever, but might as in, are you going to give yourself permission to believe that those things are possible, right? And so in the background, you hear a song. One of the things I'm trying to do now is just kind of appeal to a different audience, right? And so you hear Future, you hear Drake, you hear Tim's in the back saying, I'll wait for you. You know, if you go back, you look at the video, you realize that the video was about Future saying he was waiting on a chick, right? But one of the things that I found in this era, this day and time, is that we have to be willing to be like, yo, all right, God, more than anything, I'm going to wait on you. You know, when I think about my life and I think about what are some of the hardest things there is for me to do, right? What are some of the hardest things that I've ever had to do in my life? And I can honestly tell you that one of the hardest things, if not the hardest thing, was to wait, right? You know, we get so impatient, we get so anxious, we get so, in a rush. We begin to, in the beginning, if I got to wait for a day, it's cool, right? If I have to wait for maybe a week, it's cool, right? But I'm one of those type of shoppers that when I order something, right, I'm looking for that instant gratification. I'm hitting submit now, and then a few minutes later, I'm like, yo, where's my tracking number at, right? Like let me get the thing that I've bought. Let me get the thing that's mine. But one of the things I believe more than anything, and I believe strongly, is that we have to perfect waiting, right? Because one of the things I know about waiting is this: waiting doesn't do anything to the product. Waiting doesn't do anything to the supply chain. Waiting doesn't do anything to the shipper. Waiting does something to you. Waiting puts you in a position where you have to learn how to control your anticipation, right? You have to be able to understand that, you want it now. Yeah, you want it as soon as you desire it. But if the time isn't right, you can get the right thing in the wrong season and make a disaster. And so as we're preparing to move into this next season of what God is doing in the I Am Demorrious podcast, the subscribers may be low, the views may be low. But one of the things that I know is this: I'm going to wait, right? I'm going to wait for that time when God breathes on this thing, because I just believe that when he breathes on it, everything that I need to do to make sure that I'm able to sustain it, he's going to perfect it in me. If you know me by now, if you know me just in general, you know that the core of who I am is a believer, right? And so one of the things I believe, and one of the things I try to frame my life on, is scripture and revelation and promise. And one of the things that God said in his word was this: it says, be anxious for nothing, right? But in all things through prayer and supplication, make your requests known. I believe that all of us are in a place where we are truthful. We'll say, yo, we're not where we want to be. There's some things that we desire that we don't have yet. There's some dreams that I want God to manifest, and all of those things. But oftentimes we're really afraid of it because we're not willing to wait, right? We're not sure how long it's going to take for God to do it. And so I get ready to close with this. One of my favorite scriptures and passages of scripture to preach and teach and just talk about is when Daniel was praying. In the book of Daniel, it says that he prayed. And when he prayed, the angel came and said, listen, I heard you the first day you prayed, right? But I had to go do some stuff. I had to take care of some stuff. So my question to you today is, are you willing to wait for the thing that you're desiring to happen? I know that you get anxious. I know you get antsy. I know you get all those things, but I want to beg you. I think Paul said, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, like I'm begging you to say, God, you know what? I know that there's some areas in my life that I'm impatient. There's some areas in my life where I'm anxious. But I just believe that you're sovereign. I believe you're in control. I believe that you have this thing figured out. I believe that you're going to work this thing out for my good. So therefore, I'm going to wait on you. You might say, well, why did you say it that way? Why did you frame it that way? It's because I've learned in my 41 years of living, you have to be careful what you ask God for. Many of us would just be like, God, give me patience, right? And if you know anything about God, he doesn't just give you patience. He gives you situations where you have to be patient. He gives you situations where you have to learn how to demonstrate patience. So I've gotten to a place where I say, God, there's some areas in my life where I know that I'm anxious. There's some areas in my life where I know, I get antsy. I know, there's some areas in my life where I'm literally like wanting to, bang on the door because I'm waiting and I'm wanting to see the thing that you promised me. And one of the things I've learned, and one of the things that keeps me patient, is this. And Paul said it this way. Paul said, I've learned in every situation to be content. I know that things are going to work out according to God's time. I know that everything's going to work out according to his plan. So therefore, me being anxious about it, me being antsy about it, it doesn't speed things up. It doesn't make God have to move according to my time. You know why? Because if it worked that way, then I would be God and he wouldn't be. I'll tell you a quick story as I get ready to close this thing down. I'm reminded of a little kid who loved pictures. He was in the grocery store with his grandmother, and he saw one of those cakes, right? And he looked at the cake, and it was a white vanilla cake that was sliced, but on the top of it, it had these multicolored sprinkles. And the little boy was so fascinated with the picture that he begged his grandmother, Grandmother, can I get this? Can I get this? Can I get this? Can I get this? And, typically how grandparents are, she told him to put it in the buggy. So he put it in the buggy, and they were going on through the grocery store. Now, watch this. The grandmother understood that the mere box didn't make the cake. The mere picture that the young boy saw didn't make the cake. She knew that box included or it contained an important ingredient to making that thing on the front come to pass. So aisle after aisle, the grandmother began to just pick up different things. While she was on that same aisle, she picked up some sprinkles, and then she went on and she went back to the dairy aisle and she got some unsalted butter. She went on down a little bit and she got some milk, and she began to go down the sugar aisle. She began to go down all these different aisles, grabbing these different things. And the little boy was anxious. The little boy was like, "Man, Grandma, can you just hurry up? I want this cake." And when the grandmother got home, she unpacked everything. She got everything squared away, and she took care of her chores, and took the dog out, and made Grandpa make sure his chicken was in the microwave. She did all of these things. And then finally, after the 6 o'clock news, she called the little boy into the kitchen, and he came in, and he was sad at first because he walked in thinking that this cake was going to be sitting on the table. But the grandmother had to tell the young boy, just wait for a moment. And so sure enough, like kids, you can tell them to wait for a moment, and that first time is cool. So he grabbed his stuff and he went outside and he played for a little while. And the grandmother began to get the mixing bowls, and she put the flour in, and she put the unsalted butter, and she did all these things, the milk, and she blended it up, and she put the flavoring in there. She did all of these things preparing to make this cake. And sure enough, the little boy came back in. And he said, "Grandma, is it ready yet?" And she said, "Not yet. Go take your bath, and we're getting there." So the little boy went, he got in the tub, and he pulled out his little boats, and he played in the tub for a while. And then after a while, he got out, he dried off, and he put his lotion on, and he got on his favorite pajamas, and he went back into the living room, and he sat down, and he played with his toys for a little bit. And then he came back, and he said, "Grandmother, is it ready yet?" And the grandmother said, Not quite. And the little boy was sad. He was so sad that he ended up going to bed. The next morning, when the little boy woke up and he saw his grandmother on her knees just praying and spending time with God, he began to look at grandmother with this look, and he was upset with her. And the grandmother asked, "What's wrong?" And the little boy, kind of in fashions that kids typically do, he threw a temper tantrum, and he said, "I wanted my cake." Because he thought that the cake was never made. He thought it never reached that point. And sure enough, that morning, grandmother told him, let's come eat breakfast. He ate breakfast. He did all those things. And a little later on in the day, grandmother told him to come into the kitchen. Not because the cake took that long, but she said, come into the kitchen. And he came in the kitchen, and right there on that cake platter was that white vanilla cake with the sprinkles. And his mouth literally dropped and hit the floor, and he was looking at his grandmother. No longer could he be angry at her, because the thing that he was wanting was sitting there right in front of him, and he was anxious, wanting to grab it. But the grandmother told him to wait. And he was upset because he couldn't understand, why did he have to wait? Now the cake is right in front of him, and now yet she's telling him to wait again. And the grandmother said, listen, I need you to sit down because I want to have a conversation with you. And she began to walk him through the events of the day before. She said, listen, when we were walking down that aisle and you pointed at that box, I knew that was something you wanted. Because I had the power to deliver it to you. I told you to get it and put it in the box, in the basket, in the buggy. And when we went down the aisle, I was picking up all the different ingredients that I knew were needed to make this thing come to pass. But because the young boy's mind couldn't comprehend what was going on, he simply thought that they were just prolonging and wasting time in the grocery store. And she said, when I told you to go sit down, I was literally just teaching you how sometimes you got to wait while the master's working out things that you desire to happen and come to pass. Sometimes you just got to wait. And when the little boy began to get anxious and she told him to go take a bath and do something else that he loved doing, he was so fixated on this one thing that he didn't get to enjoy the things that he had become accustomed to enjoying. And so the grandmother was saying, listen, don't lose sight of this other stuff because you're waiting on this one thing to happen. That's why I told you, Paul said, in all things I've learned to be content. And finally, the grandmother said, but when you got upset and you went to bed, I was actually going to cut you a slice of the cake and let you eat it as a late night snack. But because you were angry at me and you went to bed, I simply sat back and I let you have your moment. How many of us are having our moments right now because we haven't seen the thing that God has for us come to pass yet? How many of us are having our moments now because the things that we're wanting God to do, it seems like he hasn't done it yet? Listen to me, and listen to me well. God knows what he's doing. I promise you, if you just wait a little while, he'll show you. But not only will he show you that he's going to do it, but I believe that God loves you so much that he's going to teach you some lessons in the process of him doing the very thing that you want him to do. Listen, the little boy learned that day that sometimes you have to wait. Sometimes things come instantly. Sometimes things come after a process. So whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is that you're waiting on, listen, it may come instantly. It may come through a process. But nevertheless, you have to believe that it's going to come. This D-Rob, man, Demorrious, from the I Am Demorrious podcast. Listen, if you haven't subscribed to us, please, 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 please do so. You can go to Spotify. You can go to Apple Podcasts. You can follow me on Instagram at iamdemorrious. You can go to our YouTube channel, I Am Demorrious. You just follow us, man. Share this with your friends. Share this with your family members. But listen, like I said the other day, you may not need this today. You may not need it tomorrow. But one day, you're going to need it. And my prayer is when you come looking for it, you will have access to it. I am Demorrious. Make sure you share it. Make sure you like it. Make sure you retweet it. Make sure you do all these things to let people know that this podcast is changing lives. We love you. And until the next time, be blessed.